Today is Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day, Israeli Independence Day, and I'd like to talk about it. It's in Shul today, Haredi area, and I had a friend, and my friends there wanted me to talk about it, albeit very briefly. And I suspect that others would like to hear what I have to say as well. And I do have something to say about it. First, let me have some Israeli arak. Here, let you get a look at the label. Okay. Popular alcoholic beverage here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh bidvaro. And what I want to do is sing a song that I learned in Ulpan here, literally Hebrew language school, Ulpan Etzion. It's for people who are into making Aliyah. It's well known. It's one of the most prominent institutions there, and their goal is to teach people Hebrew so that they can successfully live in the land of Israel. They're also extremely savvy about the whole situation, and they know that living in Israel it takes more than just Hebrew language skills. It takes commitment, and that commitment needs to be instilled by ideological indoctrination. Okay? It's not so easy to make it here, and it's not so easy to stay here. And the thing that's going to carry you through is your personal commitment to staying here. Okay? Now this song, it's called Al Kol Ayleh. As you can see already, it's a very deep and moving song. It was written by Naomi Shemer, who was the poet for the state of Israel. It's not a formal position. She was just generally acknowledged as this because her music, her songs, words and lyrics captured a lot of what life is about here. It's not a religious song, but it's replete with religious allusions, sometimes quite twisted, but nevertheless, they do capture the feeling. I'll sing it, and then I'll translate it and explain it. Al hadvash wa al ha'oketz, al hamar v'hamatok, al bitenu hatinoket, Shemer Ayleh ha'tov, al ha'ish ha'mivoreret, al hamayim hazakim, al ha'ish hashav habayta, min ha'merkachim. Al Kol Ayleh, Al Kol Ayleh, Shmarna li Ayleh hatov, Al hadvash va'al ha'oketz, Al hamar v'ha'matog, Anatakor natu al tishkach et ha-tikva hashiveni v'ashuva el ha'aretz ha-tova Shmor Ayleh azeh habayit al hagan al ha'koma miyagon mipachad peta umimilchama Shmor al hama'at sheyesh li al ha'or va'al ha'taf al ha'pri shalo hivshil od v'shed esaf me rush Elam Babruach Merakok Noshar Kochab Mishaelo Libiba Choshech Nirshamat Achshav Anashmor Li Al Kol Ela Val Ahuve Nafshi Al Ashaket Val Habechi Val Zeh Hashir Al Kol Ayleh, Shmorna Li Ayleh Hatov Al Advash Va'al Ha'oketz Al Hamar Vaha Matok Anatakor Natu Al Tishkach Et Ha-Tikva Hashiveni va'ashuva al ha'aretz ha'tova. Okay, now the name of this song, Al Kol Ayleh, literally means for all of this. And what she is doing is singing about the things she loves the most. And it's within the framework of her love for the land of Israel. Okay, so it starts with for the honey and the sting, and on the bitter and the sweet. The Vashva Oketz, basically it's a Rashi on Bilam, who's a Russia, where she turns it on its head. Okay, where they say concerning Bilam, I don't want the honey from this hornet nor his sting, but she compares it to Eretz Yisrael, which has its honey and its stings. And when she's giving thanks for this, thank you. And when I learned it in Ulpan, the students immediately protested and said, how can you be thankful for this thing? And the teacher thinks for a moment. And she says, no, you need that too. A lot of stupidities here, and occasionally you need a kick in the ass. That's what it comes down to. And you appreciate it when you get it, because the person who does it is doing you some good. And you have to understand that if you're gonna make it here. It says, okay, all our baby girl, that Shmor Ali Heitus, protect them, my good Lord. Obviously a prayer. For the fire that is burning, and on the pure water. Okay, beautiful words and allusions. On the man that returns home from a distance. Now, what most people, especially from the United States, will say, well, it's from war. It's not that here. Wars are not distant. They are close. You hear the explosions, and you see the planes flying, and you hear the crackle of machine guns, and you deal with hostilities just going to Jerusalem. What it's talking about is people who come from very far away places, Zimbabwe, Rhodesia at one time, Jews lived there, New Zealand, okay? Also were spiritually far away, Russians who know really that little more than they are Jewish, but who come here. People were very anti-religious, but feel a desire to live here, and the number of them is very high. Then the next verse is, protect for me this house. Now, that can mean just your home. And, you shouldn't have a bomb fall on it, or that you shouldn't lose it because you're poor or stupid. Also, the garden, again, you could look at it just as the garden in your house. Most people live in apartments here. But it's also the parks that can be quite beautiful. It could be a local park, what might be a combination of children's playgrounds. It could be a very city park that can be very beautiful and extensive. Gan HaPa'amon in Jerusalem, Liberty Bell Park. And the wall, okay? Really the wall in Hebrew would be kotel for the western wall, but also Choma refers to the walls of Jerusalem. Okay, so it contends from, this is where you're getting to the war, from sorrow and sudden dread. That's, I experienced it myself here once when I heard an explosion, and it's like a hollow tone after that, and it was at the time that the Arabs were putting bombs on buses, and then I heard police sirens. They had heard the same thing I had. And the only thing you could hope for is that the people inside were okay. Okay, protect the little that I have. Now, when I first came, this was a pretty poor society. You had to wait 3 months for a phone, as an example. And the living standard here, it's contradictory. It's not such a high living standard, but you get the things that you need, but you're always concerned about bankruptcy. I don't have much money now, and will it go down to zero is always a concern. Also, there's the issue of a spiritual fall, where you have people who basically are Rishaim, and it gets the better of them, and the little observance and religion that they have, they lose. Okay? So you have to be careful about that. It says on the light and the baby. And it would seem to be the light from above. We're occasionally graced by that. In the baby, it might be a baby child, or it might be the baby within us. On the fruit that still has not ripened, but will be gathered. And it'll mature so to speak, it will be used as a offering to God in the sanctuary. And this is the verse where, shall we say, at times the land of Israel talks to you. The ground, the street names, the flowers, the animals. It says, from the rustling of the trees in the wind, from the distant star. Again, when you start talking about distant stars, could be the righteous among the Jewish people. In this case, start talking about Steinsaltz. People have all sorts. He's probably the greatest living rabbi today. The very saintly individual who has had a lot of aggravation from the Jewish people. I have talked to him personally about it. Story in itself. I saw him in Highland Park. And he basically gave a talk that was horrible, and he was doing it because he was expecting to be attacked. And it was actually in a shul that was specifically welcomed him. Often greatly misunderstood, and I complimented him greatly on his talk, and it was as if to say, really, you don't have to do this. You're among friends. And he said, he mentioned, a lot of the aggravation that I had, and I said often that if a person's a giant, they have to suffer for the sins of the Jewish people. But anyway, continues from the questions of my heart and darkness. A person's, you often don't know what's going on here. Sometimes it's intentional that people are keeping in the dark. Sometimes it's that you're keeping yourself in the dark. Very often it's just because you don't really know. It says, I will list them now, specific questions. Says, then it goes, please protect for all of these, for the beloved of my soul, those who are beloved of my soul, on the sheket, the peace and quiet, and the tears, and for this song. And this is the chorus. For all of this, protect for me, guard for me, my good Lord, on the honey, on the sting, on the bitter, on the sweet. Please do not uproot that which has been planted. Do not forget the hope. Literally, the Tikvah, HaTikvah, the national anthem of Israel. Now, this is actually, it's a quote from the Chumash in the prophets. Return me, and I will return. Okay, El Ha'aretz HaTovah, to the good land. Now, it's Israel now, it's 70 years. It's a nice number. And the accomplishments have been quite considerable. It's an advanced economy here. It's advanced as it is in the United States. When I made my first trip here, I think it was in 1981, my memory serves me correctly. You had a lot of places, especially in the territories, but other places where it had a 1940s frontier look. That is gone. The technology is as advanced as it is in the United States, Germany, in some cases. When you're talking about computers, it's probably the most advanced in the world. Financially, it's well, when I first came here, there was a lot of scrimping and saving, but they had universal health care, everyone had a proper education, and everybody also had adequate food, clothing, and shelter. Today, people have cars, but it's a case where people prefer to use public transportation. I'm living in a town that has 30,000 people, and it has an extensive mass transportation system, both to travel to other places, Jerusalem and Bnei Brak principally, but really all of the major points in Israel that people go to, as well as an extensive internal bus system that is widely used. People do not go for the 1 acre lots here. They tend to live in apartments. You have some villas, but it's not the preference. But what you will have is, go so far as to call them luxury apartments. I have been acquainted with millionaires here, and I've been a guest in their homes. So I know what it looks like, and they're quite nice, but nevertheless, you don't want to quite have the desire for conspicuous consumption here, but it's people who are economically, they're fine, and that's the way that it is with the country, and it's basically been done 70 years since independence. It started before that, considerably so. Okay. Also, in terms of political influence, the Netanyahu, the head of Israel, he talks to both Trump, whoever is president of the United States. The door is open, and they have a regular relationship, as well as Putin, the leader of Russia, and it's can say the two most powerful countries in the world, and the ones that are at odds with each other, and he has cordial relations with both of them. It's not smooth with either of them. The United States is clearly the closest friend of Israel. It's reckoned the United States as the brother of Israel, and it would seem that Russia is emerging as a good friend of Israel. So that is notable, and I don't think there's too many other nations that really have managed to do that. The main characteristic of Israel is the intelligence of the Jews and education. And that has been very well developed, and it's been developed in terms of the military now. This is where it starts getting a little bit difficult, where they would like to think that their soldiers are the best, and even that their generals are the best. That's not true. Their training is the best, but it's more a case of their technology is the best. The Iron Dome system, The problem with this is, people will take great pride, in the Israeli power, but then it leads, yet you wind up with a hollow, distasteful, hollow. It winds up being hollow and distasteful. You say, well, there has to be something more than that. It has, and the answer is something is the religion. And the moment you say that, people recoil. If it's a chutznik, someone from the outside of Israel, the idea is that the men in the black coats are going to kidnap them and hold them captive in a yeshiva in Israel. That has happened, but it's extremely rare. If you see it among the frum, the idea is that they see and appreciate these really very lofty and beautiful ideals, but wonder if they really want to live up to them. Not only is it a question of their internal cause, but it's really not completely understandable, even though I experienced it myself. Like Moshe Rabbeinu hiding his eyes when God appears to him in the burning bush. Or saying when God says, you're going to be the leader of the Jewish people, and he gives assurances on all of his concerns, and then what does Moshe finally say? Can you send somebody else? And I can understand that point of view, even though I really can't explain it. But from a religious standpoint, you get into the issue of with the state, where it's a great idea, but its execution at times has been very flawed. There was a discussion of with Rabbi Shach, who was a extremely strident in, shall we say, his opposition to Chabad, where they asked him, he actually liked Satmar. They asked him about Satmar not participating in elections, in Zionist elections, and it's an issue that if you're going to start probing into, it's a can of worms, and if you don't know about it and you're very Zionist, you're going to get stung. But in any case, he said they have to do it, and it has to be done. You need somebody shouting muktzah, meaning muktzah, it's a technical term for things you don't touch on Shabbos. They're disgusting, or they're too profane, money, carpentry tools, that type of thing. And he says that if they weren't doing it, we would have to do it. The more precise point of view seems to be was Rabbi Yoseph Tzvi Dushinsky. He was a prominent Hasidic rabbi, closely associated with Satmar, may have been head of the, I think he was head of the Ayleh Haredis, the religious court in Israel, of the Haredim, the guys in the black coats and the long beards. And it's a story in it's a book I have about Jerusalem, where it was during the time when the British were ruling Israel. It was after the Holocaust, but before the state, where you had a lot of refugees from the Holocaust that were illegally entering Israel. And the British were trying to maintain peace between the Jews and the Arabs. Okay? And the Zionists, which were the majority, obviously, were part of bringing in the illegal refugees. And the Arabs were very much opposed to it on the theory that if you had a large Jewish population, it would become a Jewish state and not an Arab state. So they asked Rabbi Yoseph Dushinsky how to handle this thing, and he was a good choice because essentially the point of view of the Haredim is that they were in favor of continued British rule in Israel. They did not want to have a war with the Arabs. They basically considered the English to be benevolent rulers, and they did not like what was really the vehement anti-religious position of the Zionists. So they asked them about it, and he said there was a connection with specifically deporting a particular refugee, a legal immigrant. He said you shouldn't do it because basically this law is not correct, and that the Jews should be permitted to come into Israel, especially those who are in dire straits. And implicit in what he was saying is you can't be neutral in this. You have to take a side, and you must take the Jewish side, as problematic as it may be. Later on, during the War of Independence, the war, in fact, was a seesaw war, and essentially what happened is the Zionists became the state, lost the old city of Jerusalem, and a significant Jewish population, the Haredi, religious nationalists, the people of Begin and Sharon and Netanyahu. And it put Mea Sharim, the place of the religious Jews, right on the border. And it wasn't clear which way this was going to go. And the Zionists basically were on the verge of surrendering or withdrawing from Jerusalem because they had ran out of supplies, but they didn't want to take the responsibility for that, so they had a clever approach. They would ask Yosef Dushinsky about it, and he would make the hard decision. And what he did was he talked to Ben Gurion and he asked them about the situation, specifically about food and ammunition. they said, we're out of food. We have 1 day's supply of food, but we do have ammunition. I remember talking to a friend about this. Vishnitzer Chassid was there at the time. So what did Yosef Tzvi Dushinsky say? He said, split the food, have 3/4 today, and save 1/4 for tomorrow. And his decision was well made public. And my friend said, the Chassid, Haredi, Meisharim, Geula, they laughed at him, said, what's 1 day going to do? And it turned out that was the day that they declared the ceasefire, and they managed to hold on to part of Jerusalem. In terms of religiously, it's a long story, and right now, it's the first time it's happened in millennia, really, that Israel has become the center of Jewish learning. And there's more yeshivas here, more people learning Torah than ever before. It's really not been like this since biblical times. And it's different now. You know, the principal rabbis are here. In my first time, as I said, in centuries, it's an expression of a segment of the population, the religious population, that you have that, as opposed to the an expression of a few, a very small number of righteous people. King Hezekiah of Israel, King Yoash, the prophets. They moved people in the population. In this case, it's a case where it's the people who are learning, want to be learning, and are doing it in a sense of their own commitment. Also, the principal rabbi of I would say of our time right now, living Rabbi Steinsaltz, Israeli, lives in Israel. Before that, it was the Lubavitcher Rebbe in Europe. Not born in Europe, but lived in the United States before him, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Again, the United States. Before that, it was basically Poland, Eastern Europe, the Chafetz Chaim. Okay, so it's that the center of Jewish learning has returned to Israel. Also, it looks like that the largest Jewish population concentration is in the land of Israel. Before that, it was the United States. Before that, it was Eastern Europe. And now, if you're talking about the religious, the ones that I'm talking about, you have a dualism in Israel between basically the Haredim and the state, the secular Jews. Haredim basically go back to 1267 when Nachmanides, the Ramban, came to Jerusalem. Even though there were Jews basically continuously here since Ezra, the end of the Babylonian exile. But as I said, it was religious Jews, or the idea of secular Jews didn't really come until the Haskalah in the 1800s. you had a power struggle between the Zionists and the religious Jews, the Notori Karta, and the Zionists won, but it wasn't a total victory, because what happened was that the Eida Haredi still exists. The people who are Hasidim here consider themselves to be Hasidim. They do not consider themselves to be Israelis. However, if you look at it from the standpoint of the state itself, they did something that was very important, and that was they instituted Hebrew to be the spoken language in Israel. Now, you always had a small number of people who did speak Hebrew and wrote in it, but the important works like the Tanakh, the Chumash, were closed books. Most people did not understand the text of it. The scattered words for most people. Okay, the name of God, Yud Venehei Vav Venehei. Okay, Yisrael. Okay, Baruch Atah. Okay, really, they were closed books. But with the advent of Hebrew being a spoken language, in the national language, it spread to the religious Jews. Now, I live in Haredi area where it's Hebrew and Yiddish are both widely spoken. Everybody speaks Hebrew, although at times not so well. They speak Yiddish at home, but if you take a look at an announcement, a flyer in a yeshiva, it's inevitably written in modern Hebrew. And the importance of that from a religious standpoint is that the Tanakh and the Mishnah and major books on halacha, the Mishnah Berurah, the Shulchan Aruch, Rashi, Tosfot, they all become understandable. You're not breaking your teeth just figuring out the language. Also, even Aramaic becomes much more understandable. The difference between Aramaic and English is in Hebrew is basically the difference, shall we say, between Shakespearean English and modern English, or Chaucer's English and modern English. If you know Hebrew, the Gemara becomes much easier to understand. In addition to that, it spawned a lot of translations of these texts into English, which is really the most widely spoken language in the world, or as a second language, if not as a first language, as a second language. It's the international language, especially among the Jews. And this has greatly added to the religious scholarship of the Jewish people, especially the religious Jews. Also, you have situations where Hebrew expressions find their way to the Jewish people. Hag Sameach or Shalom Chavir tend to be understood. There are a lot of contradictions, difficulties which show up with this holiday, but they are being resolved sometimes peacefully, sometimes painfully, sometimes with forgiveness, sometimes with vengeance. But nevertheless, things are progressing and there is reason to be optimistic. Thank you.